Welcome to the Belonging Advantage podcast, where leadership, culture, and belonging intersect. I'm your host, Dr. Patricia Robinson, and together we'll explore the power of belonging in transforming teams, communities, and lives. Whether you're leading a team, a family, or yourself, this podcast is your guide to creating environments where everyone feels valued and empowered to contribute authentically. Let's dive into today's conversation. Let's talk. Most people don't avoid difficult conversations because they don't care. They avoid them because they're afraid of what might happen if they speak up. They're afraid of things like damaging relationships, being misunderstood, being labeled as difficult, creating conflict, or making things worse. But here's the reality. Belonging does not grow in silence. Belonging grows when people feel safe enough to be honest. This is episode 3 in our foundational series on the belonging leadership model: character, courage, conviction, and culture. I'm so glad you are joining us for this episode. In episode 2, we talked about character, how trust is the first leadership currency. Today, we move into the second pillar, courage. And this episode is titled, Courage Creates Safety, Speaking Up Without Burning Bridges. When people hear the word courage, they often think of bold speeches or confrontation, like they're ready for a battle. But leadership courage is usually much quieter. You see, courage is not aggression. Courage is not domination. Courage is not saying everything that comes to your mind. And we're all guilty of that at times, just speaking whatever comes to our mind and wanting to say it, not realizing the damage that is being done in those moments. You see, courage is choosing honesty over avoidance. It's addressing issues early, not letting it linger for days or weeks or months. It's naming what others feel but don't say. There are many times people are waiting for one person to speak up because they're all feeling this same way, but everyone is afraid to speak up. Courage is protecting dignity while telling the truth. You're not trying to shame or disregard anyone. You want to protect the dignity of those in your circle, those you are leading. And courage is staying present when discomfort rises. We all, at some point in time, don't want to feel uncomfortable. We don't want to feel as if we're out of place. But courage challenges us to stay present and to deal with, understand what is causing the discomfort, and speaking up, saying what needs to be said in dignity, with respect. Courage matters so much in many of our daily operations and the daily things that we do, because silence does not create safety. We want to create that safe environment. And when someone is quiet, when leaders are quiet, that silence creates guessing. No one knows what's going on, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And guessing creates anxiety. And anxiety erodes belonging. The very thing we're striving for, the very thing that we know is needed, we are eroding it because of silence. I'm going to continue to anchor these episodes. So you'll hear this next statement very often throughout this podcast. And it's this: sense of belonging is crucial and powerful. It is at the center of living a meaningful and engaging life. And if you heard the previous episodes, that was a statement I wrote in my dissertation back in 2021. And it still holds true today. That sense of belonging, it's needed. It's a powerful part of who we are as individuals. Belonging requires that psychological safety. And in order to achieve that psychological safety, it requires courage. When leaders avoid hard conversations, the environment, the tension grows in the environment. The confusion, the confusion increases. And you can begin to see harmful patterns that are persisting, continuing in a department, in a home, whatever environment you find yourself in. When you're avoiding those hard conversations, people also stop being honest. They don't believe or feel they're in an environment where they can be honest, where their feelings, where their thoughts, where what they say will be received without judgment and without consequences. So we find that people may remain polite, they're being courteous, but they stop being real. And we have enough fake people in this world. We do not want to, nor should we, encourage that in our department, in our circles. We want people to be real. And when they don't have that safety, that psychological safety, they stop being real. They stop being real, and then they're not belonging because they're not their genuine self. They can't be themselves because they feel unsafe. But this lack of courage in our everyday environments that we may experience or encounter, it causes a lot of different things to happen. And you can tick off what I'm about to say that you have seen, witnessed, or experienced any of these things. You see, when courage is missing, issues are discussed in the hallways and not in meetings. You have those water cooler conversations where the people who need to be in the conversations aren't in the conversations. You often find that when courage is missing, feedback is delayed or completely avoided. Why? Because part of that feedback would be having those difficult conversations about things that need to be corrected or adjusted or tweaked. When courage is missing, dismissive behavior goes unaddressed. People are not addressing people in meetings or in spaces that dismiss others. That's when courage is missing. You can't allow that dismissive behavior to erode what you're trying to establish in your home, in your department, on your teams. When courage is missing, people guess instead of clarity, instead of getting clarification. Guessing should not be an option as a leader. You ought to know, you ought to be able to clarify what is happening, why it's happening, what and how you as a leader is going to change that. Bring clarity to what is happening. And that causes frustration to become normalized. Everyone in the department, everyone in the home is frustrated at different times, at different things. That's all because courage is missing. And then that unspoken message, because no one is speaking about the topic or the areas, that unspoken message becomes, it's safer to stay quiet than to speak honestly. Y'all, that's not psychological safety. That's a form of self-protection. And again, self-protection is the complete opposite of belonging. When people are self-protecting, they're not being themselves. They're guarding. They have a perimeter around them that's keeping them safe from anything that may be outside of that perimeter. I want to share a moment when I had to choose courage. And not because it was easy, because it wasn't. And it was evident that avoiding the conversation would cause harm. I remember a couple of years ago, there was a situation where something wasn't quite right. It wasn't sitting right with me. I was noticing a pattern that was affecting others. It was affecting how others performed their job, how others carried themselves in the space. But addressing it also felt uncomfortable. I knew the conversation would be awkward, but I knew I had to do it. I knew it might not be received well by everyone, but being a woman of faith, I prayed. I asked for direction. I asked for clarity. I asked for how I should approach the situation because I had to. I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't allow it to continue because others in the office were watching that situation. And so it took me to understand that, to observe that, to see that, to realize I had to have a conversation with the individuals involved. I knew that silence would communicate that I agreed, that I was in agreement with this behavior, with this way of dismissing or this way of talking to individuals. I knew that my silence was going to come across as a form of agreement. So instead of addressing it, I'm so sorry, instead of avoiding it, I had to address it. And I had to be careful and respectful in my approach. So in me doing that and seeking guidance on how to approach it, I focused on the impact, not the person. And that is important. You focus on the impact, not the person. I asked questions and I listened because I wanted to make sure that what I was observing was what the person was meaning to give off. Was it uncomfortable? Yes. Did it damage the relationship? Absolutely not. No, it did not. It actually strengthened it because it brought about clarity, and that clarity builds trust. The individuals now knew that I was not there to degrade them or to make them feel less than. I wanted to actually help them. And by asking questions, it gave them an opportunity to hear me speak about some growth characteristics and how to go about growing, the correct way or the better way to approach situations in a group setting. I learned that courageous conversations, when handled with care, they don't destroy belonging. They protect it. And that's what we as leaders have to be mindful of. We have to protect the belonging of those in our spaces. We have to engage in those courageous conversations with clarity, with care, and with respect. So when we think of what does that look like in an everyday situation, here's a practical framework or some practical steps that you can use anytime you need to speak up. Step number one, first of all, check your motive. Ask yourself, am I trying to protect people or protect my comfort? Is my goal clarity, growth, or control? You see, we have to be mindful of our motive because our intentions in what we do, what we say, come across loud and clear. And so we have to make sure that our intent is pure. What we're trying to achieve is pure. So step number one, check your motive. Next, name the impact, not the person, right? Don't say so-and-so, you are guilty of this or you are wrong for this, and you're just blaming the person and bringing them down. But no, name the impact. So let's give an example here. So you can say, Instead of saying to somebody, you're always dismissive, what you can try to say is, when ideas are interrupted, it discourages participation. You're not attacking the person. You are protecting that person's dignity. You are allowing that person to hear what you're saying without feeling as if they're being attacked. And when people are being attacked, they're automatically in that protection mode, that defensive mode. So we want to try to break that barrier down from the beginning. Step number 3, invite that dialogue, right? Remember I said I asked questions and I listened. So this next step 3 is about asking questions. How do you see this? What's your perspective? And can we talk about how we can handle this differently? That way you're putting it back in their hands. You're putting it back in their lap, so to speak, right? To have them think about the process, think about the conversation you are having with them, and to really be reflective and think about what they have done, have said, how it may have come across to other people, and how they can now put steps in place to make it better. So when you're having this courage, it's not a monologue. It's a conversation. It's not a one-way street. It's not just you as a leader just spitting off and just giving this monologue of all the things this person has done wrong. No, it's about having a conversation with the other person to hear their side, to invite them in, to give them opportunity to grow in the midst of that conversation so that they can change their perspective, change their thoughts about how they are communicating or not communicating. And the 4th step is stay present. Stay present. Be in that conversation, not typing or not looking at your phone or not looking at an email. Stay present. Don't let your mind wander about the next meeting you may have to go to, or an event you have to go to, or the dinner you have to go cook. Stay present. Discomfort does not equal danger. You've got to stay grounded. You've got to breathe, and you've got to listen. When you're having these difficult conversations, when you have the courage to have these difficult conversations, it's not going to come easy. You've got to breathe through it. You've got to stay present in the midst of that conversation. Courage creates safety when people feel respected, even in hard conversations. So you're having that hard conversation, and what you're doing is disarming the other person. And now they feel respected. They don't have to have these walls put up, these barriers put up to protect themselves, to be on the defensive and ready to fight. No, you're disarming them. They feel respected. Their dignity is intact, and you're creating a safe place for that person. We all have different ideas, different things we want to share. And when we talk about courage, you've probably heard throughout your lifetime different myths that may apply to courage. So let's try to undo some of those myths that we may have heard, right? Growing up. Myth number 1, if I speak up, I'll create conflict. Far from the truth. Your avoidance creates long-term conflict, because if you don't speak up, that conflict continues. Just brushing it under the mat is not going to let it go away. It's going to resurface. It's going to resurface bigger and probably worse than if you just addressed it at the very beginning. Myth number 2, and this is a good one. It's not my place. I'm not the leader. I'm not the boss. I'm not the supervisor. Here's the truth, and I hope everyone listening understands this. Leadership is influence, not a title, not your position. It's influence. And every single one of us influence people on a daily basis, multiple times throughout the day. So yes, it is My place, it is your place, because leadership is influence. Myth number 3, I should wait for the right time. When will that right time be? Tomorrow? And then tomorrow, you say the same thing? You see, the truth is, delayed courage often becomes damage control. It's no longer creating a safe environment. Now you are in damage control mode. As a leader, you're trying to put out fires. You're trying to get the team back where it needs to be. That's because you delayed in the beginning when it first appeared 3 months ago, 3 days ago, 3 weeks ago. Delaying courage is not what you need to do. You need to be a person, a leader who is willing to take courage and act. And I'm not just saying act at the very moment and just say what you want to say. Again, that's not how we do things, right? You have to make sure that you are prepared to have that difficult conversations. Otherwise, it becomes a you say, I say, she say, he say type of thing going back and forth. You want to maintain the dignity and handle it with respect. Here's another myth. If I'm uncomfortable, I'm doing it wrong. Listen, truth is, discomfort is often the cost of integrity. You are going to be discomfort. You are going to feel discomfort. You are going to be uncomfortable in those situations. And I like to believe that I know that I'm not going into these situations by myself, because I can't do what I do by myself, right? I have to be exercising my faith in what I do. And so that discomfort just lets me know that I'm not by myself, right? So that discomfort, it's building and it's building. And if you allow it to continue because you feel discomforted, you feel uncomfortable, it's going to cost you your integrity. No one's going to want to believe what you say or what you do. So having the courage to speak up, even when you're uncomfortable, speaks volumes. I can't emphasize enough that courage does not mean being fearless. It means being faithful to what matters. It means understanding the situations around you that's affecting your team, your home, your department, and having the courage to do or say something in the midst of that situation. Courage is an action item. And so it has to be actionable, right? So here, when we go through a week, let's think about, how can I put this into practice? How can I put exercising courage into action? How about identifying one avoided conversation? What conversation are you avoiding? And if you continue to avoid it, what's the cost? What's the cost of you continuing to be silent? Next, rehearse it. And rehearse it with care and respect and maintaining others' dignity. So as I mentioned before, you plan out this conversation, right? You focus on the impact, not on any type of blame. Again, you want to maintain the dignity and the respect. You want to not burn bridges, right? So you want to make sure that you are approaching your conversation with care, with understanding, and with respect. And next, take one courageous step. Ask a clarifying question. Offer honest feedback. Interrupting dismissiveness when you see it. Again, you want to change the behaviors, the mindset, the patterns that you see. So all it takes from you is to take one step. Take one courageous step. Small acts of courage help to shape culture. And that's what belonging comes back to. You're building a culture where people feel safe. So take a moment to reflect as you go through this week. Take some time to yourself to reflect, whether you write in a journal, you record it on your voice notes on your phone, or you just ponder it within yourself. But think about, where have I been choosing comfort over courage? Think about that. Think about what conversation would build safety if I handled it well, or if you handled it at all. Thank you for joining us on the Belonging Advantage podcast. Remember, belonging is not just a concept. It's a powerful force that shapes our lives and communities. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. Let's continue to build spaces where everyone can thrive. Until next time, take care and keep fostering belonging in your world.